So this is going to be the latest method for iPhone SE 2020 with no touch and or a 3-minute restart. This is a warranty-free method using 3 really long jumpers, but it's very easy to do because we've kind of changed around where to put the jumpers. So if you've seen my previous videos, you want to follow this method for the most effective way to do it. So if you like these type of videos, make sure you subscribe and let's get started with this repair. First thing we want to do is first cover what causes no touch. Essentially is this pin here. It is called SPI AP to touch CS Con L. Essentially this pin gets disconnected from the CPU, and what happens is if we enable the layers, we can see that there's a trace. This red one goes from that connector all the way through this area where we're gonna run a jumper to the CPU directly somewhere on here to right here. So the goal here is to reconnect this broken trace that's somewhere, I believe, under the SIM tray. So if we go to diode mode, so just for quick shortcuts, if you've seen my other videos, you'll know kind of the whole thought process, but just a quick rundown. Get this foam removed, and then the pin you want to look for is, the fastest way to find it is find this little gap, this first component, and it's the one to the left. So I just will pick off that underfill there, and then you'll see the reading we're supposed to get in diode mode is 336. If I measure this pin here, you see I got OL. But on my left hand, if I push down real hard on the ground pin, I'm basically resting my ground, my red probe here on this screw post. So when I'm measuring this pin, I press down with my left hand. You can see how my multimeter is going crazy. I'm not moving, I'm just applying harder pressure. So that's 100% the issue here. So this is one of the jumpers we gotta do. The next one is gonna be at the charging port. And this is also kind of similar method, is we wanna find this ground pin here, and it's gonna be these two to the left of it. The names are I2C1 AP-SDA, I2C1 AP-SCL. So these work in pairs, SCL and SDA. These are data lines, and they also run through the same thing. So basically these 3 traces break, and in my previous videos I suggested to run the jumpers from right here to the connectors. But if you take a look, let's see, click this one here, you zoom out, you'll actually find there's a resistor here that we can actually jump to. And then if you check the other line, this one, there's a resistor here. So basically the solution is we run the touch jumper from here to the side of the SIM tray over here, this very top one of these 3. Then, and you want to do it in this order, by the way: touch, then this pin here, I2C1 AP-SCL. This pin goes to, you skip the SIM tray area and you go to this first resistor, the closer one. And then lastly, you want to do this jumper, which goes over here. So basically, if you're looking at the CPU here on the side, is the second one, closer to the SIM tray, and then the other one is, there's like a gap, and then the pad, closer to the SIM tray. And essentially, the way I don't even look at ZXW anymore when I do these repairs. I just look at the second pin from ground. So I find this ground, and then the second one goes to the closest one, which is this one here. And then the other pin to the right at the charging port goes to this one here. So now that we kind of covered that, now on this specific board is not 3-minute restart, but you want to do this anyway just to guarantee that you don't have a warranty issue, because I've had a few already where I fixed touch and then a few weeks later it comes back for 3-minute restart, or vice versa. So you want to do all 3 right now so you have a warranty-free device and a happy customer. So the first step we want to do is put the board on a preheater for a few reasons. One is we want to be able to easily remove the underfill, which I kind of already did on this pin here. So here's a shortcut. So I had mentioned there's a ground and then the two to the left. So you'll see here in the middle, there's these little kind of patterns. And so on the third circle, so there's one circle here, one here. On this one, it is the one to the left, so here. So this is gonna be a ground. And to verify that, the multimeter, you'll see this one goes to ground, and then we have two readings on the left. Actually look, this one's OL as well. And then I push down on my multimeter, you can see it's like jumping around everywhere. It should be a solid number, but I push and it jumps around. So yeah, this is definitely gonna have both issues at the same time. But you'll see this circle here, go to this left side of the circle, that's ground, and then these two pins. And then if you go straight down on these two pins, is these two sides of the cap. So essentially we are jumping to the cap just because it's easier to reach than trying to jump to the connector. So what I do is I'll clear out this underfill here and essentially just expose this area. All right, so that area is ready to jump. Next we gotta remove the CPU shield. Let me get this off as well. Like I said, this is the fastest, there's a sticker here on the side. This is the fastest way to fix these SE 2020s. And I decided to make a video. Now I do have a detailed diagram and post on my locals community. So down below in the video description, I will link to that as well. So that in case you want a text version of this solution, you'll have it. So you can bookmark it. You know, sometimes it's not practical to watch a whole video just to find that one piece of information. All right, so now I'm going to use my hot air station. This is probably the only time I use the hot air station for the repair too. To remove the shield, I'm at 380 Celsius and 45% air on my add-in. And essentially I just grab a shield. And then here it comes. Make sure you slice that sticker. I don't know if I mentioned that. All right, so here's the first resistor we're gonna jump to, and then the second one over here. So now we get it off the preheater. So while it's still hot, let's, there's some solder here exposed. So there's this one, so there's 1, 2, and then here. So there's 1, 2, and then this side, and then here towards the bottom, you'll find there's a gap right here, and there's this resistor here. So those are the places we're gonna jump to over here, and then to over here. So for the touch line, we gotta peel up this sticker here a little bit. And essentially what I like to do is just score the board. What that means is I'm just gonna make a line with my blade. And you wanna do this with the new blade. This one's still pretty new, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it. If you get lazy and use an old blade, you're gonna have a hard time here. So essentially I'm slicing, not slicing, but kind of scoring the board. This makes it way easier to cut into or peel off. All right, so now that I've kind of made a line here, a line down here, and then a line across this way, essentially now I gotta just get under here. So using your blade, by the way, I've gotten a ton of these recently, like I had 5 of these come in all within 2 days of each other, which is weird because I've gotten these, you know, here and there, and then just out of nowhere I got flooded with these. And I've had my video, oh look at that, it came off real nice as one giant piece. That's always the best, and I got it on camera. It doesn't always come out like this. The last time I tried this, it came out real. I basically had to scrape it away manually. Alright, so this is basically the general area where those 3 traces are going to be. Let's see, using my polarizer light, can we see them? Kind of. Polarizer light plus some ISO sometimes does a trick. And yeah, you see one line, and then below that there's 3 lines, which matches up with over here. So bring up ZXW, we're in this area, and you'll see there's one line here by itself, and then these 3. And the one we want to jump to is the very top one. So we're back over here. So this is where a polarizer microscope light really comes in handy. They're pretty expensive, but well worth the money in my opinion. Alright, so using your blade, just try to scrape away in the general area where that top jumper is, the top trace of the 3. Now if I remove my polarizer light, or just, it's just a ring on the light that kind of rotates the lens in there, and that's what creates a polarizer effect. So right now I can't see anything, I'm just blindly scraping. The goal is to kind of gently scrape and expose those traces. Once we see one, then we can try to just focus on the one we need. Because you don't want to expose all of them, otherwise you're gonna have trouble jumping to just one. These are tiny traces. So if you're wondering why I charge so much for this repair, this is why. It's very precise, work to do here, and it's very easy to damage beyond repair. So that's also something to consider. So if you've never done this before, I do not recommend you even try it, especially if it's your repair shop and you're trying to do it yourself for a customer's phone. Because if you try this and you fail, I'm not one who's gonna welcome these repairs. I'll literally just decline it. So don't think that you could use me as your backup. This is not what I'm in business for, to take other people's screw ups. I do get a lot of these messages where people try things themselves and then they contact me to save them, and I decline most of them. Unless it's doable within a reasonable amount of time and it looks like a high success rate, sure, but if it's destroyed, no thanks. Alright, so let me keep scraping. I do think I'm getting real close to exposing that trace. I am being very gentle, and this is like the hardest part probably, is getting to that one trace. Well, adding the jumper too is kind of hard, but once you get this one out of the way, the other 2 are super easy. Alright, yeah, if you don't have this polarizer light, I wish you luck, because it's gonna be real hard to know exactly where that one trace is at. You'll probably have to expose all 3, and then let me clean up here. Alright, so I see one trace here, and if I put my polarizer light, I can see it matches with that top trace. So you guys can see that. So right there. Alright, so now I just gotta focus on just scraping out as much as I can of that one. Real slow. Almost there. Because this goes all the way up. So I'm going to try to, the more the better, just because sometimes it's real hard to get that jumper to attach. And if you just have one exposed, then it's real easy. It's when you get the bottom one exposed as well, then it gets tricky because you gotta make sure not to bridge those together. You also don't want to dig too deep, otherwise you're gonna destroy the trace and then it'll be game over. Or you could just try to keep exposing more further closer to the CPU, but then that gets really difficult. All right, so now that we got that exposed, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a little bit of flux. Try not to squirt out a big chunk of flux. All right, I'm gonna put some there, but I'm also gonna put it on the other areas that I'm gonna be soldering. So on these caps. By the way, do you guys have a solution for this? Anytime I push flux out of my tube here, my Amtech, it just keeps oozing out. I don't know, the previous tubes I had never did that, but this one does. I've been soldering for 5 years, 5.5 years now, and I never had that happen, so I don't know, I don't know what changed. All right, so I added flux everywhere just because I'm gonna be soldering there. Might as well deal with that now real quick. All right, so the goal, let me switch out to, all right, so I'm gonna use my JBC tip, C210009. This is a conical tip, which is basically a pointy tip, and I'm using it on my Aixun T3B station with the 210 handle. So let's give this a try. And you'll need one of these super fine micro tips, otherwise it's gonna be real hard to do any kind of soldering. If you have a giant iron, good luck. If you want to learn more about the soldering iron, I have a full review on my channel as well. And it's really cheap, like $150 shipped from China. All right, so that got tinned. Might as well tin the rest. That way it has, when you tin stuff, it makes things real easy to solder. So you want to do that. All right, got some there. All right, now the fun part, jumper wires. This is 42 gauge insulated jumper wire. What that means is there's a special coating over the wire, so if it touches anything else, it doesn't conduct electricity through it. So only whatever parts you expose will be conductive. So it won't short out with, you know, all these random parts. You know, the shields and stuff, everywhere it's gonna go. So first thing I do is cut a super long strip, and then essentially I'm gonna use this part of the board to try to prep the jumper. So I'm gonna add a little bit of flux on here. Basically use this as my little prepping station. Solder wire there, and I'm using my fingers right now to hold it. Hopefully I don't burn myself. And I'm trying to lay the tip real flat. So because it's insulated, there's like a coating over it, and if you don't burn that away, it's not gonna solder. So this is what I'm attempting to do right now, which might be hard to see on the camera, I just noticed. All right, let's go with that. Now this is going to be a real pain to do, because you got to kind of lay the jumper directly over the trace, and you got to hold the jumper in place, and you're dealing with this really long jumper wire, so it's going to move around everywhere. So make sure you have good tweezers. You can also use some flux, so like add more flux so it kind of sticks to this area. All right. So I'm kind of holding it where it should go. Now this is where I wish I had 3 hands. Fortunately, it is not possible in today's technology, so I'll have to be real careful, and then just do quick little taps. Even kind of swiping action as well helps. All right, it's kind of there, but I can see it moved. So I'm adding a little more solder to my iron. I'm gonna stab it in the brass wire because it's a little too much. And what I like to do is kind of twist. I don't know if you guys saw that twisting. I was slightly off, but now I got it attached pretty well. So if you look, I can poke it and it doesn't move. And I only have that one trace exposed, so I know it's gonna be fine. So now that that's soldered on, we grab the jumper wire. You want to feed the wire under the sim tray here, and then just grab the wire all the way over here, and then using my thumb, I kind of hold it right here by the battery connector. I make sure to get the wire under the battery connector. Usually it just kind of goes in there, but let me get my other tweezers. These are Tool 3D tweezers, highly recommended. Highly recommend them. And then, by the way, I'll link all this in the video description. So the jumper wire, the tweezers, I'll link to the Aixun soldering iron, the JVC tips I just bought from Amazon. All right, so make sure the jumper wire is under the battery connector. I'm looking, and the jumper wire is still under that SIM slot. And essentially we're going to lay the jumper to be as close to where we're going to be needing it. In this case, since we didn't know where that jumper was going to end up at, we just kind of solder it and try to burn away that coating as you're trying to solder it onto this cap. And you're doing it to the top side of this cap only. So the bottom side is ground. All right, keeps burning. All right, this is kind of installed, but I can kind of see it's a little loose. I don't really like the look of this solder joint, so I'm gonna add a little more solder to my iron tip, so I get a really nice fat joint here, solder joint. All right, there it goes. All right, that was a little tedious. And then this might break off, so just keep that in mind. Just try to cut off what you can. Either you could just cut off here at the end. So as long as the jumper wire is still soldered on, you know, there can be a little little excess coming off of it, as long as it doesn't touch anything else, then you're good. So we'll clean all this up later. So this is the first one here. So from the touch connector, under this battery connector. So if it's kind of loose, you could, since this wire is kind of thick, you could kind of bend it to whatever shape you want. So do that, and essentially run the jumper over these caps, under the SIM tray and into there. And then that's it. Next one is the charging port. So get your jumper wire ready, and it's going to be this closer one to the SIM slot. All right, so same thing. So hopefully these are super quick, because you don't have to scrape anything out. If you try to scrape out the 3 jumpers right next to each other, I'm pretty sure I had that in my last video on this. It was real pain, and it's not practical. So you can see here, I just have to, is it on there? I think that's on there. All right, that's on there. All right, so here's a trick for this one. I kind of wrap around the CPU corner, and then on this coil, and then over the baseband CPU. All right, so this way, this way, this way, and then rotate the phone, and then get it under the SIM slot as well. And then it goes to the furthest, to the left one first. All right, I'm still under the SIM tray using my thumb. I kind of just hold it in place, and I just take the risk and cut off the excess now, because I already know I need just enough to, oops, I just need enough to jump to this spot. So what you can do is scrape off the excess and using your tweezers. Kind of bend it into right over the pad. So that actually worked out perfectly. All right, where's my solder wire? Here it is. There's some solder iron tip so you don't look dumb like I just did. All right, no. All right, see how the jumper is still kind of loose? I would not say that's ready yet. All right, there you go. So that is not moving. So a quick overview. So this left one, so this is the ground pad. Here's SDA and SCL, right? So this one goes to, from here, under the SIM slot, over here. I like to push it under that coil and then to this first spot. And the next one is gonna go to the other pin. All right, so I think I have enough jumper wire to reach. You know what? No, it looks slightly too short, so I'm gonna cut another strip here. Nothing worse than prepping the jumper through the whole process and then just too short. I've done that in the past as well. All right, so is the second one with the pad closer to the SIM tray. So you do gotta prep this jumper wire. So I'm kind of swiping across it. Hoping to create a solder joint here at the tip of the wire. So it looks kind of loose. You want to make sure these are solid solder joints, otherwise you're going to have a warranty issue. Alright, that is soldered on, but I don't think it's solid. I'm going to add some solder to my tip. There you go. See, like, although it's not, doesn't look nice, like it's just a giant blob, it is real solid. Like I could see the jumper doesn't start moving until further down the wire. All right. So same thing, run it along the side. Like I mentioned, this is insulated, so you don't have to worry about grounding out the wire or the line. And just follow the exact same path as the other jumper. Alright, so once you're over baseband CPU, you want to rotate the board. Now if it does come loose, make sure you push it back. Alright, so this is going under the SIM tray. Hold on, this wire is way too long, so it's being moved around by my workbench. Alright, so let's try this again. Put it under the SIM tray. Alright, so this is, let me cut the wire, it's way too long, so it's flopping around, and so I'm just gonna first cut off over here and see that's, so I cut off a big chunk. Alright, let's try this again. By the way, since this wire is so thick, it's really strong, so it doesn't break easy as well, so that's another benefit to this. So this wire, it's funny because I bought this wire years ago when I literally first started soldering. I just looked on Amazon for super thin, like copper wire, and I bought this thinking like, oh, this is what I'm gonna use for jumpers. But like for most repairs, like auto, well back then it was like touch IC. That was way too thick for auto IC or touch IC. But now that we got to do this super long jumper wires, these are perfect. It's the same thing. We want to put the jumper to that other cap. So this is the hard part when it's kind of jumpers jumping out. Let me add some flux in this area. Create a sticky surface so it doesn't keep popping out. All right, it's under a SIM tray. There it goes. Then we hold it. Let me try to line it up. I do have a little bit of excess, so I was able to cut that off. Now, still holding it in place, I'm gonna solder it with my iron. And that looks real solid to me, so you know it's solid when you can poke it and it doesn't move. Alright, so now that one goes through here, through over here. Oh, it popped out a little bit. Now you're probably wondering, can the CPU heat, break the jumper wire? Since I started doing it this way, I never had any warranties for this issue. So yeah, this one's slightly too short, so it doesn't catch on this corner. Oh, there it goes. Jumper still attached, so there you go. All right, so now that we've got all the jumpers installed, we do have flux everywhere. Also, one of the nice things of this layout is that if anyone ever comes to open the phone again in the future, and that's not you, they're never gonna bump into these wires and break them. So this layout is like very tucked in, away from any potential pry damage. All right, so because we have flux everywhere, I like to use a preheater to soften the flux so we can clean it without touching it. Because you don't want to touch it, because then that can risk, breaking off the joints. If you bend the solder joints too far, it might break. But this one here, I feel like is way too close, and I can see it's slightly exposed at the end, so I don't know if it's bridging. I'm gonna try to create a tiny little gap. Yeah, it should be good. This area looks free of flux. It's funny because the jumper wires are literally going over the touch jumper, so I can't even see it. I'm hoping it's there. Yeah, I can see it from the side. Alright, so let's clean off the flux wherever it is. And then lastly, the LCD connector area. All right, so first thing you want to check, well, you probably should have checked this as you're doing it, but I was just kind of rushing through it, is check to see if anything is shorted, just in case. So here's that circle, so the ground, reading 302. Oh yeah, see this one, this one's grounded. So gotta figure out, where are they shorting out? All right, let's double check. Did I jump to the wrong spot? I don't think so. So let's see, just follow that trace. So that's, second one is this one. Where could it be? All right, so let me maybe slice off this excess piece of wire. See if that cleared it. Actually, the first time I ever had this happen. Sounds good. Huh, shorted to ground. And just to verify, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th pin. So if we go to XW, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so this one should not be shorted. Earlier, I don't believe it was shorted either. So So easiest thing you can do in this case is just disconnect the jumper and see if that clears the short. If so, then your short is somewhere on the jumper. So let me see if I can do that without destroying all my work I just did. So I'm gonna try to hold the wire. All right, I've disconnected the jumper. So it might be hard for you to see, but it's floating here in midair. Yeah, see, I was actually able to probe the jumper wire and there's a short. Let's see, ground. Huh, that's shorted too. I wonder what it is. Well, there goes the whole point of this video. Unless that short was already there and I didn't check it. I'm pretty sure I checked it. A ground, good, good. All right, so now it's good. I think I was way too close. So that's good. Then the issue is gonna be on the jumper wire, which I have here, which, So I'm probing the wire and it's good. The pad or the pin on the connector is good. So this one. So somewhere in here I was somehow bridging to ground. All right, let me just resolder it back on and see if the short comes back. I wonder where the issue is actually. I just wish I had, although these tweezers are great, I wish they were like really thin but also flat at the end. All right, let's see if I can get this. All right, let's solder back on. Hope you guys saw that. It was, the trick really is just, wow, that's weird. Maybe that cap doesn't make sense. Let's see. Let me clear out some of this. Yeah, so according to ZXW, we have the ground and then this pin. So these are the two pins, and I know for sure because I've done two in the past 24 hours. So it's not that I'm like jumping to the wrong pin, I don't think. Might have to just redo it. The jumper wire is insulated, so I mean, I technically can remove the cap. Let's see. All right, let me measure it again. Ground. All right, it's good now. Plus, look, I push down. You can see the diode mode readings everywhere. I don't get it. All right, let me just double check. So this pin goes to yeah, this resistor here, which is, right, so if you count the little ones, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if we go here, the little ones here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, this one right here. And on this side, we should get the exact same reading on the other side because it's all one connection. 326, which is the expected reading. On the FPC, we're getting like a really weird reading. Okay, that's good. The jumper wire is not beeping because it's not making good contact, but let me remove that cap. Now, you shouldn't do this, but you know how they say desperate times come for desperate measures. All right, so this is the pad here, and you make sure it's still not shorted. Well, not shorted, not shorted. Jumper wire not shorted. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you smash the like button. It really helps out the channel, and subscribe if you like these microsoldering videos. I do share a lot of solutions and stuff. Also, if you are a master repair technician type of person and you want to get paid for sharing solutions, I'm working with Louis Rossman. I am his recruiter for the Repair Wiki. So check out repair.wiki, which is an open source, not open source, like crowdsource style website where anyone can contribute. And we are looking for high quality guides to be created for popular devices. Now, you can contribute for any device, but if you want to get paid by Louis Rossman contributes, then you do have to, then we're looking for, popular devices, so iPhone, Samsungs, stuff like that. Game consoles, Nintendo Switches, iPads. Let's see if I got this installed. All right, it's installed. So yeah, if you're interested, my email is on my website. So just go to contact us and say you're interested in contributing for the Repair Wiki. So just let me know what you can contribute, and we'll figure out a price to pay you depending on the quality of the solution and the number of solution and devices you're going to be covering. All right. Finally, so I think maybe the cap got damaged. I wouldn't be surprised if it was from me being a little too rough when trying to install, trying to prep the cap. All right, so sorry about that detour there. Hope you guys found that helpful. I think knowing how to deal with problems is the key thing for microsoldering, because the actual solution, probably the easy part, is when you try the solution and something goes wrong and now you're like lost. So hope kind of how I handled this case you'll find helpful and insightful. But yeah, so now I can see that jumper is soldered on. I see more flux here still. So the reason why we want to clean out the flux, because you can theoretically leave it as is, but you do want to UV mask it for extra protection. So that's what we're going to do next, and you can't UV mask if you're not working on a clean board. But before I do that, let me just double check. We want to make sure there's no bridges, so I'm going to probe these two together, and you can see it's not shorted together. So that means those two pins are good. Also, it's good to check across the touch pin. So none of these three are shorted together for whatever reason. So just double, triple checking, especially if you scraped out that trace and exposed the other lines, you want to check that you didn't bridge any of these two with this one or vice versa. All right, so these are all soldered on, everything's connected. Just for sanity's sake, these are the readings you should see on a fixed device. So this is ground. Well, by the way, the board is hot, so the reading is going to be lower. So yeah, 312, 313-ish, in the 300s. Also this one in the 300s. And you can see I'm pressing on the board, it doesn't fluctuate. Press on the board, it doesn't fluctuate. And it's solid. So now it has a solid connection from point A to point B, whereas before it was broken traces, so sometimes it would touch, and as it was kind of losing connection, you would see that number fluctuate. So now that, if I were you, I would test and make sure it's good. So turn it on, make sure touch works, run the clock and make sure it doesn't restart in 3 minutes. If that's the case, then you're ready to UV mask it to kind of seal off and finish off this case. So I'm gonna use some UV mask here. And this little tube is a tool. I like this one because it's a tiny little nozzle or needle tip, and allows you to push out tiny bits of UV. So what I do is I put it on like a metal tool. Once you squeeze it out, pull back the needle to suck back that excess UV liquid. Otherwise, it's going to keep oozing out into the little tube, which you can see happened to me when I first started using the UV mask. Kind of like the flux too, it just overflows. And by the way, you don't have to replace that cap. So just, I'm sure you guys are going to ask. So UV mask this whole area, especially the ground area, just in case. All right, like that. And then like I do like having this one here on this side, so I'm going to UV mask that down. So just basically use my tweezer to apply it and use this tool as a spatula kind of situation. Same here. Now this part you might want to be extra generous with the UV liquid because this is where people use tools to unplug and basically unplug screens and stuff. So you do want to make sure it's covered so that in case someone does kind of apply pressure, they don't instantly break it. At least it'll have some protection. But yeah, if someone breaks it, I would say I wouldn't cover that under warranty, or maybe as a courtesy. But I'm just UV masking. And just some random points here. And then you do want to UV mask that jumper down here. Although it is kind of hard to reach. And I'm out of UV mask. All right, let me get a little bit more. Push them out and then pull back the needle and then close it up. This is much better than my previous UV mask setup. If you guys seen that in previous videos, I just made a huge mess. I had to have the tube wrapped in like in a towel, so because it just made a mess everywhere. And so the goal here is to just kind of cover the exposed ground, especially. All right, and then this almost here at the end where we're gonna seal off this resistor here. And then this last one here. So the UV mask also helps recoat any exposed wire. So in case it is really close to a component and it's the insulation kind of burned away from your iron, it does recoat that whole area so nothing bridges. All right, so that's pretty much all I will UV mask. Then I get a UV lights. So this specific light, the name on it is Repair OR UV Pro. I actually got this for free from Union Repair when they sent me a bunch of free tools to review and stuff. But I don't know where to buy it. So there are other UV lights out there on the market. I will link to the most similar one, which is the Kianli one. Essentially, you want to just hit the UV lights on everything you coated. But yeah, I'll link to all my tools. And if I ever make a video and I forget to link a specific one, just post that in the comment. Let me know which tool you want to know about. This video did take a little bit longer than I was planning. It's really late right now and I do have to wake up really early tomorrow. And then also don't look at the UV light directly. That's bad for your eyes. So whenever you turn it on, just like look away. And since this is a really big light, you kind of can't miss wherever you're trying to hit. So you can see all the UV is cured and solid. All right, and then lastly, for good measure, you do want to reinstall the shield, the CPU shield. And what I like to do is, the shield goes like this, but as you can see, there's wires and stuff there. So essentially, what I like to do is somewhere almost halfway, like somewhere around here, I'll cut the shield. So let's see if you guys can see this part. So basically kind of like in the middle of the third tab from the left. Let me do it off the edge of my bench. A little easier for you guys to see. So around here, yeah, pretty much the middle. These are my wire cutters. And then essentially just bend out these little tabs here. All right, so now I have a little area here sticking out, and then I use my tool to cut it off. So now I cut off the little piece here. So the shield now has a little cutout for the jumper wires so that it doesn't disturb them. And at the end, it does look like a clean finished product, and it's not obvious that anyone was ever here. Which, I mean, technically it doesn't matter, but if another shop opens this phone and then the customer says like, oh yeah, I was so and so shop, then this other shop can potentially talk crap saying you do bad work. So if certain shops are getting your devices after you touch them, you don't want to have that reputation of like, oh yeah, that shop down the street, you know, everyone's heard of that shop down the streets or whatever, or like the You Break I Fix or CPR who's always messing up phones and stuff. You don't want to have that reputation. So just spend the extra few minutes here to try to resolder the shield. Now I'm definitely using the wrong tip. I'll be honest, I'm being a little lazy. Alright, it's not working. Let me add, it worked earlier, but let me add some flux. And you only need a few of these solder joints so it's on good or well. Alright, so let me tin my iron as well. Let's see, I'm gonna try to give him a micro pencil. I think I just needed some flux. I'll just do it here on. So yeah, this iron is legit. If you haven't used an Aixun, you know, it uses genuine JBC tips, but you don't have to pay the JBC price. I replaced my hackle with this Aixun T3B, so I should tell you something. You know, it's not just, you know, I'm shilling this iron just because, you know, they sent it to me for free. It's actually legit, so there you go. So I was mentioning, you can see the jumper wire is there and it goes under everything. And you can't really see that, and it's under the shield, so you know it's going to be good. So someone's going to disconnect the charging port, you know there's going to be no damage. Someone unplugs the screen, they'll just go over the jumper, but not unless they're like really rough. Then, but I usually recommend when you're unplugging these screens, go from here from the bottom, because that's how you avoid pry damage to the components, not just the jumper wire, but just overall pry damage. All right, so here we are. All right, so here we go. We have over 5 minutes of the stopwatch going with no restarts. I have full touch, all using the original parts. So this was definitely a board issue, as you guys saw with the diode mode readings. They're fluctuating. So it's fully fixed and ready to go. So if you enjoyed this content and you want to support the channel, check out the links down below in the video description. So I'll link to all the tools I use in today's video, as well as a t-shirt like this one, Sato Clock. I will link to my locals community as well, where I have posted the solution and the diagram for this repair. So if you want a quick reference for this, check that out. So I do appreciate all you guys sticking around here to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.